Hi, friends. How is everybody? Surviving, hopefully? I keep trying to find places in my house that have good lighting so I don't look terrible, but I've not been successful with that yet. So here I am in a random corner of my bedroom. And we have a crabby baby, as always, in our house. So if you hear a screaming baby, just know that that baby is loved and cared for. He's just really upset. Is everybody good? I'm going to give us a couple of minutes here before we jump into it. If you know some folks who have not been joining us on YouTube, feel free to share this link with some people. And that way they can get connected somewhat with us and hopefully hear something encouraging tonight and maybe even go back to it and watch it later. Hi, Sam. All right, I'm just going to wait a couple more minutes. Hi, Sarah and Elaine. Hope you guys are well. This is a smoke detector. Boop. All right, I am going to pray, and then we are going to get rolling here. Father God, thank you so much for tonight, for the opportunity to gather. It's different, and it's difficult, and it's not what we're used to, but I just ask that this would be life-giving in some way. So bless us tonight. Bless my words. May they be from you, nowhere else. You are our God, and you take care of us and show us that tonight. We love you, grateful for you. Amen. I was wondering if it would be okay for me to tell, sorry, I want to get this just right. Laptops are the worst. There we go. I was wondering if it'd be okay if I told you, I know over the years I've told you different parts of my story, but I was wondering if it would be okay if I told you all of my story. Not necessarily from birth, but from the time I made a decision for Jesus till this moment. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what that means for you and means for us in this current season of life. Good? I know there's a delay, so I'll wait for the delay. If anyone has qualms, please speak them now. So my journey in faith, my journey with Jesus began when I was younger, when I was about 6 or 7 years old. My mom took my twin brother Caleb and I to this, it was like a Christian convention where they sang worship songs and they presented the gospel, and then they gave kids the opportunity to come forward and say, yes, I want Jesus to live in my heart. I want to live for him. And I want him to mean everything. And when I was about, it was somewhere between 5, 6, and 7. My memory is not the best. My brother, however, has a steel trap for memory. I should have asked him before I got on with you guys tonight. But I remember consciously saying, I want this. There's this man, Jesus, who died for my sins and everything that I've ever done wrong. and he loves me and he wants me. And I remember being drawn to that. And I was reminded lately of how Jesus draws us. A couple years ago, this is a sidetrack. Sorry, I rabbit trail. But a couple years ago, when Lacey and I moved into our house, we tore down the fence around our property because it was in disrepair. It was just in bad shape. And for the last 2 years, instead of paying for someone to take all that wood away, I've been burning it. And I was having a quiet moment with the Lord on Friday night. I started a fire outside in the fire pit, and I was burning old fence wood, and I was just sitting there being with God in the quiet. It was a perfectly still night, no wind. The neighborhood was silent. And I just remember feeling the warmth of the fire and how it just draws you in. Not only does it draw you in with the eyes, because it's like so intriguing to look at, but the heat draws you in. And that very same like feeling, that drawing, is what I felt as a young child, that Jesus was drawing me to himself. And I made a decision. Yes, I want this. I want to be forgiven. I want to live with Jesus forever. Oh, 6 or 7 or 5, somewhere in there, made that decision. However, my life didn't really change a whole lot after that moment. Maybe some of you resonate with that you've made a decision to do something or to practice something, or maybe it was your decision to follow Jesus. And then life didn't really change. It wasn't very much different than before. It was kind of the same. And I felt that. I was, a good kid. I wasn't necessarily doing bad things, but I wasn't also really living 100% for Christ. But I did make a decision that I wanted to be with him. So go flash forward from 7-year-old me to middle school me. Middle school, I think, besides like being an adult and making a college decision, middle school is one of the hardest times in life because you're transitioning from like childish ways and things that are okay for you to do as a child to sort of becoming a pre-adult. And it was a really awkward time for me. And give me like names of people who it wasn't awkward for, but it was just different. And again, nothing much in my life was different. I lived for everybody else. That's when it really started, where I lived to people please. I would do things to make people laugh. I would do things to make people like me. My sole focus was to get a group of people who wanted to be with me, and I would do anything, say anything to make that happen. I remember in 6th grade, I took some wires from the science room, and later on in the day when we were in English, I plugged those wires into one of the outlets in the English room, and it actually popped the outlet and it smoked, and a whole bunch of people thought it was funny, haha. And obviously I got in trouble for that. But the only reason I did that, I remember still now thinking in my mind, is this will be funny. People will like this. So right away, I started living for others. Moved forward to high school, and that trend continued. I did everything for everyone else. I was the likable, funny guy. I had friends in all different grades. From when I was a freshman, I was friends with seniors and juniors and sophomores. And my sole purpose was to get as many people as possible to like me. And I primarily did that through humor, like trying to be funny. And it worked. It really, if I'm being honest, it worked. I had lots of friends. I don't know how many of those people cared for me in a way that they would give me the clothes off their back, but they liked me. And I loved that. That's what I wanted. I just wanted to be liked. And when I found out about people that didn't like me, I would try really, really hard and be really intentional about engaging them so that they would like me. I lived every day for other people. Again, moving forward through high school, now it's senior year. And some of you guys will resonate with this. It was time to make that college decision. Okay. I didn't know really. I knew I wanted to help people, and I thought the best way to do that would be through psychology, being a counselor. Which, who knows, maybe I will do that someday. But that was the thought: is I want to help and be with people. And I think part of what was in my mind is I want people to like me, and if you help people, they like you. And but I didn't take that search seriously. I just kind of let it sit on the back burner. I never took the ACT. I didn't really apply. And then I got a really serious girlfriend. Dumb, but we all make mistakes. And she was so on top of the college thing. She got accepted to her school. She knew where she was going. She was going to go to Wheaton College. And I was in love, or so I thought. And I decided, I want to be close to her. And as best I can, I think I'm going to follow her. Not a great decision, but I did it anyways. I didn't have the grades or wasn't smart enough to get into Wheaton, so I started looking for schools close to Wheaton, and that's how I found Trinity in Palos Heights. And I applied in May of my senior year, took the ACT in May of my senior year. I got in and I pulled the trigger and said, I'm going to do this. This is going to happen. And I did. And I was accepted. I made my decision to go there. I never visited. I just was going to do it. The first time I ever was on campus was the day that I registered for classes, which was only like a month and a half before the semester began. So not a whole lot of time to change my mind. And I did it. So August came. I drove 22 hours from home in Montana to school in Illinois. I moved in. I met some great people, and I was still with my girlfriend, and I thought that life was amazing. So September goes by, October rolls around, and I get a Skype call from my girlfriend, and she said that she was done. Like, this wasn't what she wanted anymore, and that whatever, she was finished. And the problem when you make a decision or you build your life on another person is when that other person decides that they're finished or leaves, then what does that leave you with? Your life kind of starts to crumble. And I remember thinking, well, what is this? What am I going to do? Do I even stay here? Wow. So many things were racing through my mind. Here's a beautiful thing that I haven't said yet, that I want to say, is that God is always working. And God was working in this. He knew what he was doing. And even though it didn't feel like it, or I felt terrible, he was present in it. And so I decided, you know what? No, I'm not going to leave Trinity. I'm not going to leave this place. I've made some great connections and I've met some awesome people. I'm going to be here. I'm supposed to be here. And so I stayed. And in the end of November is actually when I met Lacey. And, we started hanging out and spending time together, and we started dating, and a little while later, and now, years later, we're married and we have 2 kids, and God is still working. But that was not the end. That's the happy part of the story, but that's not the end. At the end of my senior year, I had done way too much socializing, and I was actually on what's called academic probation, which means if you don't get your grades in a good spot, they kick you out of school. Yay, another problem, another hardship. And I remember thinking, like, God, I met this girl now, and I have all these friends, and to not go back to Trinity would be awful. Like, what would I do? I don't want to go home. I don't want to stay home. But God is always working. In senior year and junior year, or sophomore year and junior year, I got my grades back to where they needed to be, and with the help of some amazing people who decided to walk alongside me and coach me and just be there for me. And it's because of those people that I actually graduated college. And that's what happened in May of 2012. I became a college graduate. But then the uncertainty hit again. The uncertainty was, well, I've built this life here in Illinois, but I have no job prospects. What am I going to do? Am I going to leave this life behind and move back home and hope something changes? Or will God do something? And I remember a couple of weeks before graduation, a job opened up on campus to be an admissions representative or a recruiter. And I thought, I would love to do that. I love people. I love this place. I think that I can make that happen. I think I can do that. And so I applied and I interviewed. And during that time, I graduated. And a week after graduation, I started my job at Trinity Christian College. And how amazing. God is always working. He knew that this community, he knew that Illinois was the place where I needed to be. And I worked that job for 4 years, and it was a joy of my life. I truly loved it. And I will never forget the day when that all kind of fell apart again. Prior to me losing my job at Trinity, I had been through like 18 months of severe anxiety and depression. It was the most difficult thing, even to this point of my life. It still is the most difficult thing I've ever wrestled with. I struggled with, does God love me? Does God care for me? Did the people that I care for love me? Would they want to be with me if they knew some of the things that I was thinking or wrestling with or struggling with? Would they want to walk beside me if they knew my sin deep down? And I just truly believed that God hated me and wanted nothing to do with me. And I lived there for a long time. And God is always working. And he brought me to a place of understanding, to the place that Romans 8 talks about when it says nothing separates us from God's love. Even our thoughts do not separate us from God's love. And I came into this season of grace. I knew deep down that God loved me so much and wanted to do good things for me. And it was beautiful. And I was, people say living your best life. I was at that point living my best life. And recently, Lacey and I went on vacation to go see my parents in Montana. And when we came home, we obviously went back to work. We came home, I think, on a Wednesday, and I went back to work on a Thursday. And I worked all day. And at the end of the day, there was this meeting with human resources, and myself and 2 other of my colleagues were invited to that meeting. And we sat down around a table, and we were told some of the hardest news a person ever hears. And that news was, hey, we're sorry, but you no longer have a job here. Because of budget constraints and other things, we have to let you go. And I think I've told some of you this before. It was honestly like a movie. I just remember watching people's mouths move. I could see that they were talking, but I couldn't hear anything. There was like this ringing in my ears. And I remember thinking, is this real? Like, is this actually happening right now? And then all of a sudden, like in an instant, I had peace. There was the voice of God in my head saying, I've got this. I'm always working. Don't worry. And he was. Within, I think, a month, I had another job working in real estate. And I thought that that was going to be my career for the rest of my life. I enjoyed the people. I enjoyed the work. And it was good for that season. But after several months, it became very clear, I don't want to do this. I'm not built for this. It was very limited human interaction, like meaningful human interaction. I felt like I wasn't doing anything that was changing, not necessarily the world, but like benefiting my community or benefiting those around me. It was just transactional. It was all about making money. And I thought to myself, like, I really need to get out of here. And in May of 2017, I believe, Pastor Dennis, the former youth pastor at Calvary, mentioned to us that he was moving on, that he was going somewhere else. And I remember being really bummed. It's like, man, our youth group is finally in like a stable place, and now the leader is moving on, and I wonder what that's going to do for our kids. And in the back of my mind, also thinking like it would be really cool to do that job. Well, I was approached by some leaders of Calvary Church, and they asked, hey, would you be interested in being the youth director, and would you interview for the position? And I was blown away. And I said, yes, I would love to interview. And God was working, because God is always working. And I now, for the last, it'll be 3 years this July, have been working in a dream job, getting to be with you guys, getting to invest in you and to pour into your lives. And God is always working. And, you know, I've had trials. There have been some folks who haven't liked me, and that's okay. We had some trials in our family with the birth of Oliver. That was really traumatic, but God is always working. Even with the birth of Everett, he is a challenge, but God is always working. God is always working. Have I said it enough tonight? God is always working. Maybe one more time for good measure. God is always working. I still face difficulties. I still face uncertainties. Right now, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to continue in seminary or not. It isn't what I expected. And I don't know what to do. But God is always working. The reason I wanted to tell you my story from sort of beginning to present is to prove to you that things do not happen at random, that God has a plan. God knew from before I was born that he wanted me to pastor middle school and high school students in the southwest suburbs, specifically Orland Park, Tinley Park, Mokina, Frankfort, the surrounding areas. He knew he wanted to do that. And he made it happen, even when I made mistakes, even when I made decisions that weren't rooted in him. He continued to work through them. I made the decision to come to Illinois to please a person. I made the decision, kind of, to stay here to please a person. Galatians 1:10 says that if it says, who are we seeking the approval of God or of man? Or are we looking to please God? Because if I am looking to please man, people, if I'm looking to please men and women, I cannot be a servant of Christ. But even when we're not serving Jesus, God is always working. This morning in our service, we talked about Esther and how she was put in the position, you can read it in Esther chapter 4, she was put in the position to be a voice for her people to the king. And her people were facing annihilation. The people of Israel were going to be executed in the masses. And Esther was an Israelite woman married to the king. And her uncle says, you can do something about this. And she says, no, I can't. I can't speak up in his presence. What if something happens to me? And Esther's uncle Mordecai says, what if you were put in this position for such a time as this? Because God is always working. You've had school canceled now for the rest of the year. Some of you might not have 8th grade or high school graduations. It's a bummer. And the easy question to ask is why? Why is this happening? The more difficult question is, how can I serve Jesus, or how can I be a person of action in this moment? And we're going to be looking at action, being people who act over the next couple of weeks. because God has called us, Jesus has called us to act. He has called us to be people who do work, not to please others, but to point others to them. Just like how the flame of a fire pulls us in with its beauty and with its warmth, our actions can pull others in and direct them to Jesus. God is always working. So maybe this moment of coronavirus and quarantine is an opportunity for you and for me to become people of action. People who trust that God is always working, people who listen to what he says when he says, love your neighbor, take care of the poor and those who need help, to point others to God. Now is the time to do it. We have space. Things have been canceled. There's an opportunity to be on mission. And my hope for us is that we will do it. And the reason I told you my story is because God is always working. And even if we don't do it, someone else will. But I want to be the people who are part of God's plan, who are part of God's work, not those that just watch it happen. Cool beans? Cool beans! All right, I'm going to post small group stuff, and then you guys can zoom it up. They're all together tonight. Lauren couldn't be with us, but hopefully we're able to make that work next week for her to be with us. Can you guys hear my typing? Is it annoying? Sorry I'm taking so long. Josh doesn't know how to work computers. That's not true. I'm just struggling at the moment. Hello, Joseph. High school boys, let me know if that works. And Amy and Grace's group, unless I missed it, I didn't see a link for you guys. So you, your people have that, right? Never mind, I found it. Hold on. All right, I'm going to leave this up for a little bit until you guys get started. And I'm going to wait till that view counter drops down, and then we're going to close out. But it was awesome to be with you. I'm going to hopefully check in on some of your groups. And peace and blessings, friends. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Friends on YouTube, are you good to go?